where do we go from here? How do we overcome, adapt, and thrive? How do we move from the economic chaos that's occurring today to having confidence in the future? I'm Andy Busch, and it's my job to answer these questions for your clients. I did this for an investment bank for most of my career. I've spent my career doing this, and as I just mentioned, I've done it for the U.S. government as the first Chief Market Intelligence Officer for the nation. Today, I work with clients in insurance and banking, private wealth management, technology, manufacturing, construction, anyone who's trying to answer the question, where do we go from here? So what do I tell them? I give them a little Midwestern, common sense. Yeah, that's right. Get ready now, right? Get prepared. There are big opportunities that are coming for those that are prepared. I try to get people out of thinking of what's happening right now to think about what's coming down the road so they can be winners. And there will be winners and losers from what's going on right now. So let me start this off by asking you a question. And that question's this. Quick show of hands. A, B, C. There's a few. Here's the thing. We don't need a vaccine to have economic growth. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. Okay, here's what we're going to do today. Really quickly, I'm going to go through some of these things, and I'm going to talk about my confidence of what I just said, and I'm going to back that up, right? Because this is why I'm super confident about what's happening in this country. We have already built capacity. Go back to March and April. Think what that was like. We were struggling. We were sending ventilators from California to New York, even though we didn't really need them. We were trying to make PPE gear, GM, Ford. We're all doing this. And we've gotten a lot better at therapies. And I'm going to show you a slide now that's pretty controversial. I don't want to upset anybody, but it really validates what I'm talking about. This is data from Johns Hopkins University. If we had learned nothing from the last 6 months, these graphs would be identical, but they are not. We've had a huge surge in cases, but we have not had a surge in deaths. Now look, I bet everybody in this room has either had the virus, known somebody who's had the virus, or known somebody who's died from the virus. And I don't mean to downplay this at all. It's very, very serious. But from an economic standpoint, we have learned so much. I don't want us ever to go back to what we did in that second quarter of this year, and that is to shut down the U.S. government. And let me show you why. This is what we're overcoming. It's horrific. At one point, May 9th, we had 24 million people drawing on unemployment insurance. That's horrific. It's unbelievable. Today, it's only about 15.5 million. 15.5 million. And if you look at Google mobility trends, it'll show you exactly where it hit home, right? Hospitality, leisure, bars, restaurants, hotels, right? You notice that the bar here is not open. Planes, trains, school buses. All of these companies were negatively impacted, but it's much worse than that. Who is in these jobs? Low-income to middle-income workers. And if you drill down a little bit further, it's Black and Latinx females that are most negatively impacted by this. That's why I say, and I have advised the White House to never shut down the economy again. It is impacting what's going on. And we're about to see a wave of foreclosures that really hits this home. So yeah, it's been really bad. It's been incredibly bad. But guess what? Things are getting better, right? So we had minus 14% GDP in the second quarter at one point. Now the expectations are for third quarter GDP to be north of plus 20%. That's right, I said 20%. It's hard to believe. Unemployment's at 10.2. It's going to go down. Estimates are around 6% by the end of the year. I firmly believe that. Now, I want to answer a question right now that's probably burning in your minds, something that's really strange that you can't square the circle on, and that's this. Why is the stock market going up? That makes no sense. How in the middle of all of this bad news can the stock market go up? Well, there's two things going on. Number one, what I already just said. We're improving. We're really learning how to deal with COVID and overcoming that, right? But the second thing is is kind of shocking. And I know there's a lot of people, there's a lot of partisan nature with the election going on, and people really hurting each other with language that is just incredible. But I got to tell you, this surprised me. Even now, even after 3 years of Trump, this really surprised me. And that is Trump and Congress actually did something well. They stimulated the economy faster than we've ever seen. And it's astonishing how much stimulus is in the economy. This is not talked about enough. This is what it is. Between the Federal Reserve, Congress, and the White House, it's $11.4 trillion of stimulus that's coming into the economy. That's massive. That's more than 50% of GDP. It's incredible. And it's one of the reasons why the stock market, which is always forward-looking in what they do, is going up. Now, granted, yes, tech companies are seeing the biggest rise, but this is really important to keep in mind, right? Now, there's also great theater going on in politics with the election, of course, and maybe another stimulus plan. And it got me thinking, boy, all of this wraps together and reminds me of this. It reminds me of the time that I was in the theater. Now, I've done everything in the theater. I've acted, directed, written, I've stage managed, and when you stage manage a show, this is where you end up during the run of the show. You're up there, you got a headset on, you got your lighting person on the left, your sound person on the right, you got your assistant stage manager backstage, right? And you're calling the cues for the show. So you're looking down, you're looking up, calling the cues, actors are saying their lines, and everything's going great during the run of this one particular show. And we had a scene at night where the actors had flashlights, right? And it was going well, and the lights were kind of dim. But all of a sudden, I look up, and the lights are out, completely out. And I turn to my lighting guy, I go, hey, what happened there? What's going on? And I noticed all of the blood had drained out of his face. Side note, when you see that happening, you know something bad's coming. And I asked him, what happened? And he goes, I don't know. It just shut down. I'm like, you're kidding me. He goes, no, it's not working. And being the good manager, I said, well, what can we do? And he said, well, we could turn it off and then turn it back on again. And I had about 10 seconds between the end of that scene and the next scene, and I was like, do it. And so he turns it off. And after what seemed like eternity, about 3 seconds, he turned it back on again, and all the lighting cues were still there, and everything worked. And this is exactly what we're doing with the economy. We've shut off our economic light board, and we're hoping those growth cues are still there. And the good news is, most of them are. However, there's some problems, aren't there? So let me tell you about what's going on beyond the stimulus, because there's a lot of really great things going on in the economy. We've heard a lot today about people talking about overcoming and adapting, and that is so salient for what I'm going to show you next, and that is this. I want to talk about companies that are adapting, and I go through a lot of examples during my talks, but I want to talk about a big winner that occurred right in the March-April period, and that, of course, is Kraft Foods. Right? And of course, what was going on at grocery stores? People were running down the aisles, they were grabbing every shelf-stable food they could possibly get, macaroni and cheese, pasta and soups, right? And they were running out of the store and probably pushing a few people down at the same time. Well, Kraft was a big winner, because mac and cheese is a big winner. And especially if you have kids between, I don't know, the ages of 3 and maybe 40, right? They love this stuff. It's fantastic. I still eat it. I love it, right? My wife tells me not to, but I go, right? I love it. And so Kraft could have been successful on that alone, right? They were selling a lot of mac and cheese. But you know what? That's not what they did. They kept being a very successful company because they kept surveying their clients. And they found out something shocking. 56% of parents served mac and cheese for breakfast. That's right. So what did Kraft do? They said to themselves, holy smokes, this is an opportunity we want to take advantage of. Let's adapt to what's happening. And so they did, and they came up with this. That's right, mac and cheese. It's not just for dinner anymore. Kind of reminds me of the old orange juice commercial, right? It's not just for breakfast anymore, right? This is what they did. This is a great example of a company adapting very quickly. Now, there were trends in place before COVID hit that have been supercharged. And these are minor trends, but maybe most people drag their feet about adopting them. And here are the ones that I talk about during my speeches in the longer term. I give a lot of examples about what goes on with these. I think a lot of them are fascinating. I think we've all been impacted by work from home. And of course, this highlights one of the areas of the stock market that has gone up significantly, and that's all the big tech companies. Because obviously, technology has been a big winner through all of this. But I want to point out one at the end there, that ESG, in case you don't know what that is, that's environmental, social, and governance. It's not just a millennial thing, it's an investing theme that billions of dollars are being poured into every day. And while it gets disparaged a little bit, it is happening. And there's some really good things that are going on there, and I think it's important to understand that because it matters for a wide range of businesses. There's some companies that are being disinvested from. Those are like coal companies. There are other companies like wind companies and solar companies that are having investments flow into them, and that's interesting. Now, this is what's going on right now. Let me talk about how do you thrive in the future, because I want to show you a way forward. I want you to think about these things. This is what I try to get clients to really drive forward their minds, get them out of the here and now. And this is what's coming, right? This is how we're going to thrive. 3 things. Redirection after the election. Obviously, reshoring of supply chains, that's a big thing that we learned back in April and May, actually in January and February, because the Chinese shut us off. A lot of manufacturers got hurt from that. And of course, rethinking real estate. Let me say something about the election really quickly, right? This is what I've been writing a lot of research on. We potentially could have the largest shift in policy in our lifetimes if Joe Biden wins. But here's the secret. It doesn't matter if he wins, because both he and Trump are going to do 2 things that are going to stimulate the economy that will be very good. And I talk about them in my longer talks. The other thing I want to say is this. Hey, rethink real estate, right? That has ramifications across a wide range of industries. Construction, limestone. I know we have someone here from limestone, right? These are the things that people are worried about. Masonry, all of these things when it comes to real estate and construction and building, including state and local taxes, what's been impacted very hard because they put up really big buildings, don't they, for education. In the cities, commercial real estate, offices and buildings, to the malls out in the suburbs, these are all being impacted and all having major implications for opportunities going on in the future. So just to wrap this up, yeah, get ready now. Start thinking ahead. That's what's so great about being here today. So many of the speakers have talked about this, and this is what I do for my clients. I get the honor of answering the question, where do we go from here? Now, these are the topics that I cover, not only live and virtual, but also we record these ahead of time, too. And they're very effective. I'm Andy Busch. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for Midwest Speaker Bureau. This has been a blast, and I look forward to working with you through them in the future.